being an entrepreneur starting a new company can be incredibly difficult because you hear no all the time, right? I mean, part of the struggle is you have such a passion for what you're doing that you think everybody in the world should believe it. So when you have a conversation with somebody, you think they're going to be like, yeah, wow, oh my goodness, like how did this not exist before?
How much now,
right?
Yeah.
But normally you get something like, oh, that's already got to be out there somewhere. Somebody's already has done that. Or I can't believe that's going to be the case. You get no a lot as an entrepreneur. I often say, imagine you're in Mombasa and you're wanting to go out and swim in the ocean, and you want to go way out into the ocean, right? So you start to swim out, but they're waves, right? So as you swim out, these waves start to push you back. Eventually, when you go far enough, you get over that wave, and it's just clear, right? Like now, you can just go out and start swimming. And you don't know where it is. It's different in every place. But you have to go over those waves, and you have to push and push and push until you get to the point where now you can finally go, right? That to me is how starting a business feels. In the beginning, you are pushing so hard and the waves keep pushing you back and pushing you back. But you have to keep going. You have to keep pushing through those waves. And my job as a mentor is to stand next to them and say, keep going. You'll get there. But it's going to take you a few of these or more, but I'll usually say a few. But you have to get over these waves.
Yeah.
And when you do, it'll be a beautiful swim. To be honest, my frustrations are there, but I don't live inside of them.
Okay.
And that's something that you really do have to learn the discipline of as an entrepreneur. You can't let your frustrations run you. So you don't want to forget, because you have to learn for the next time and be careful about it. But I've had a number of times where customers have been difficult to work with, let's say, or have looked ahead and tried to put me in a position where things have been difficult. But every time I've been frustrated, I've learned from it. I've had a lot of new technology that I've worked on over the years. And one of the things that surprises me is how often people will be willing to look at the idea that you've worked hard on and just decide to maybe take it themselves and sort of go do their own thing. Without any concept over, how difficult it would have been to create that idea in the first place, or those waves that I had to swim over to even get to this point before they could just kind of come in and go with it. So a lot of my frustrations have been around just relating with people who maybe don't have that entrepreneurial concept, but view whatever's going on as a way to make money and decide to push
and run with it. Can you remember in one time that someone...
Oh, with cameras on? Do I call out names? Probably not.
Maybe not. Perhaps Sawa. Why not?
No,
okay, it depends.
I wouldn't call out names.
All right.
I've worked in a number of different industries,
Yes.
but I'll say, for example, very early on in my life, I was involved in a few different, because I work overseas so much, I decided I must be really smart so I could start an export-import business. So I was doing a lot of work in Asia and South Asia in particular, and they make wonderful, beautiful carpets there. So I thought, wow, this would be kind of neat to do a little side thing where I can import, these wonderful rugs, carpets to the US, and we can have people that sort of distribute them through the US and make everything happen. So I had great connections. I was over there often, so I was able to continue to secure the connections. I set up a network in the United States. I was about 24 when I did this. I decided, okay, well, we're gonna do this in a unique way. You can order a carpet made for you from Asia, have it sent to you in the United States, but you don't have to pay for it until you like it and keep it. So I thought, this is brilliant. Try it before you buy it, sort of thing.
Yeah.
I thought these were the best rugs I'd ever seen. So I believed that anyone would feel that way. So this is that idea of a passion. So I thought, well, if this comes over to them, there's no possible way they wouldn't appreciate this and they'll want to keep it. So there's no risk. Well, after about 3 of those where they were not cheap to bring over, And I had the system set up, but after only 3 carpets where all 3 of them were returned, I decided this is probably not the right business concept. And what it did was teach me to ask and talk to the customer first before I started a program. And I have actually forgot that many times throughout my career. But lately, that's been a passion of mine, is to remember that you have to make sure that the customer is the one looking for the product you make, and that it's not just you. And that was, I mean, I lost real money at 24 years old. $1 was real money, right? So for me, that was a real money project venture that I learned hard lessons in.
Where did you get the capital?
All of my friends, who mainly are not my friends anymore for that reason.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I borrowed a lot of money from my friends to do that, and it was a long time for me to pay it back.
Give me a value. How much was that?
Well, it was more than $10,000 and less than $50,000. I'll give you that range.
Okay.
But that was over 25 years ago. So,
all right.
And when your friends are 24,
yeah,
they maybe have a couple $100s to give you. So I really had to work with a lot of different people to get that to happen. It's funny to think. I haven't thought about this for a long time, so it's funny that you brought this up out of me, because the numbers I deal with now are quite different, but not really, because the numbers are just numbers. It's really still the programs and the project. The numbers change, but it's really the same thing. You still have to create the relationships.
Very true.
We are raising money for different companies right now. We're in the middle of going through a pre-seed round on a particular company, and we're talking about raising several $100,000 there. I feel no less responsibility to those people than I did to my friends when I was 24.
How was your interaction the first time you knew you're not going to pay them?
Yeah, that was hard. It took a long time for me to figure out how to even talk to them about that. Most of them I paid back. It just took me a very, very long time.
I'm assuming you have been in relationships before, marital or girlfriend?
No, I'm married. I have 2 children.
Married with 2 children.
Yep.
Has there ever been a point in your marriage that you disappointed someone or your wife in almost a similar way?
I completely forgot to tell my wife that I was coming to Nairobi until 3 days before I left.
Wow.
On this trip. I would say that was
so that's a conflict already,
completely
as
on
it
me.
is right now.
Yes. I mean, we're okay, but I totally, completely blew that one. And it wasn't even, it was just a complete lack of awareness on my part to even think about, yes, I need to decide to talk to other people about this. So we've negotiated over the years ways for me to remember to communicate, and I forget them often. In those moments, I have to realize it's me, and I have to be completely willing to say, I blew it. That's a good, actually, that should be in every entrepreneur, in any real businessman's vocabulary. I blew it is something people hardly ever say. And you would be surprised if you just said that first, how often things wouldn't develop much further. Owning and accepting responsibility is something we talk about, but we often try hard not to live. And I think I've learned the hard way that I have to just say it sometime. So I just said, honey, I blew it. That was really bad. And you can't necessarily just expect her to be happy. That's not the result you should expect. But owning it's important.
Is there a point, at any one point of your life, the two of you have had to be away from each other for a specified period of time? And how did that?
It's hard. We have twin boys who are 19 years old, and that can be difficult. I mean, we made a decision early on that we would be investing into what I was doing from a work perspective. And so her decision was to stay home and to raise our children. And when you have 2 very young children and your husband is gone for weeks at a time, it can be very difficult to live. You don't feel like you have that support. She didn't have the support that I should be giving to her. And I could say I missed times of the children growing up, but that's a little bit of a selfish thing for me to say, in the sense that I was following a passion at the same time as being a passionate father. So I understood that that was a shared, like a two-part course to follow. But I felt it. There were times I really felt that I was away when I shouldn't have been.
What's your dream?
Can I have more than one?
Mm-hmm.
I have a lot of dreams.
All right, so what's your dream in Kenya?
Recently, when a friend of mine returned and was talking about the logistics problem of getting food and medicine north into Turkana, and she may have exaggerated a little bit, but she was talking about how difficult it was to get this stuff up in an appropriate manner. We have a drone, a UAV, that can carry about 250 kilograms, about 2,500 kilometers, 2,500 kilometers. Okay, fully autonomous, so it can basically fly round trip from Nairobi to anywhere in the country, carrying about a cargo van size of items to out and back, right? And so it's a passion of mine to find a way to help people. And so I came back with this idea and decided, why not? Let's bring it to Kenya and see what happens.
There's been a big problem with employment.
Yeah, big time.
So what's your proposed solution for having people stay in a place where they're not earning anything or not growing their businesses? What's your creative?
The key here, and for example, one of the things we've talked about and introduced to a few places here is what we call the AI Institute. So AI is the scary Terminator technology, right? Like the robots are going to take over the world. But actually, in my opinion, artificial intelligence is meant to be working for us. And if we don't use it that way, it's our fault. But I think it works really well if it's working for us. And the way I view AI is to use data to make decisions better. And so the goal in what we've been doing is to find a way to educate young people here how important data is and how to use it. So if we can create more data scientists, if we can create more capabilities with the people here in Kenya, then you don't have to count on a European company to come in and tell you something. You don't have to count on an American company to come in. You have all of the technology and the tools with the person who can use them to do it all right here in Kenya. And data scientists, there's nothing, I'm going to say this, data scientists, I love you. There's nothing special about a data scientist other than their commitment to using the technology and doing it right. They are ruthless in figuring out how to solve problems. And I know those people exist here.
You're so passionate about what you do, and you've already given me a past that is quite sober. How do these conflict management skills aid you into getting to your dream? And especially now that you're an entrepreneur who's learned to hear no. A lot of times, it's easy to say, it's that person who did not let that deal go through. And how does it connect to each other? What have you learned? What are the lessons you picked?
Conflict itself is not bad. Conflict without resolution is what damages people. So focus on the resolution, not on avoiding conflict. I think it's really important to learn how to finish the conflict. There was a company I worked in about 5 or 6 years ago, and it was, I tell people that company had the most brilliant people I've ever worked with in my life. I mean, I have never had a collection of people more intelligent, more curious, more hardworking. I mean, just as a collective. And we're talking about hundreds of people. Just as a unit, everyone was this. And we couldn't get anything done because we continually challenged each other instead of finally deciding to move forward. So that was, to me, was an example of this sort of.
If you were to nominate someone to train as a mediator, who would you nominate and why?
Who would I train as a mediator? That's a great question. So I'm going to start by giving you the criteria that I'm using to sort of think this through. I think a mediator is an entrepreneur.
Mm.
I think the work of a mediator is the same thing. The waves keep pounding back and pounding back and pounding back.
Mm-hmm.
So I think the idea of who a mediator is somebody who is very similar in that sense to an entrepreneur, but the opposite in terms of conflict seeking, right? So an entrepreneur and a mediator are probably good friends, but not the same, right? And so I would say that there are a couple of people that I've worked with here who are pretty good at that. One of them's in the room over there, and I think you know him. But having the patience to work with people and the selfless humility to understand that it's not about you being the mediator, but that it's about the two or more people in front of you and trying to reconcile what's going on with them. That matters.